Good evening and welcome to the Carnegie Town Hall. This meeting of the City Council will begin in a few moments. The City Council meets on the first, second, and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. and serves as the city's policymaking and legislative body. Each meeting is governed by Robert's Rule of Order unless those guidelines conflict with city ordinance or charter. City Council meetings offer an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to their elected representatives. Those in attendance are invited to address the Council during the public input segment at the beginning of the agenda. At that time, any issue that is not subject to formal action later in the agenda can be addressed. Testimony that concerns a resolution or an ordinance's second reading is only allowed when those specific agenda items are being addressed by the Council. When addressing the Council, citizens should speak directly into the microphones at the podium and state their names for the record after being recognized by the chair. To accommodate and respect all viewpoints, citizen comments are limited by ordinance to no more than 5 minutes each. Comments should be respectful and focused on providing new information that will benefit the Council's deliberative process. By city ordinance, all remarks must be addressed to the City Council as a body and not to any City Council member, including the mayor. The chair reserves the right to limit the number of speakers. City Council meetings are broadcast live on CityLink and online at siouxfalls.org. Information regarding the City Council, its committees, meetings, briefings, and members is available by visiting siouxfalls.org/council or by calling the Council office at 605-367-8085. Thank you for your interest in Sioux Falls City Government.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. It is July 11th, and first of all, we'd like to introduce you to your City Council.
Council members Erpenbach.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Starr.
Present.
Staley.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Councilors, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. We are very, very blessed to have Alan Green. He is the founder and CEO of Lifelight Global, which has made such an impact not only in Sioux Falls, but across this region and, yes, across the country. Alan is kind enough to join us every now and then to lead us in our invocation. And Alan, thanks for being here tonight, along with his wonderful bride and partner, Vicki. They're making a difference. And so what we'd ask is to stand for the invocation by Alan, and then please remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Green.
I'm honored to be here this evening. Would you bow in prayer with me? Gracious Father, Heavenly Father, we thank you on behalf of all who are here, who are gathered here tonight. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunities that you give us each and every day. We thank you for the many abundant blessings of this city. Lord, I thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work that helps our city and region. And you've told us in your word and your scriptures that we as citizens should uphold and pray for government officials and those that are in leadership, because they're established to promote peace and order and justice. So therefore, I pray this evening for Mayor Mike Huther. I pray for this council. I pray for Councilwoman Staley and Rick Kiley and Christine Erickson and Michelle Erpenbach, Greg Neitzert, Rick Rolfing, Pat Starr, Marshall Selberg. Lord, I pray for them. We pray for all the other members of government and city officials. I ask that you grant them wisdom to make the right decisions for our city, our community, decisions that would honor you. Father, I pray that you would give them the ability to work together in unity, even when it's hard, but even when there's honest disagreement, that we would come together in unity. I pray for peace in their lives and their work. Lord, tonight I also lift up our police department, our fire department, our EMS workers, all our schools, our children in our schools. Lord, we pray for safety for them and protection. Lord, teach us to love like Jesus, to serve like Jesus, and to share the truth like Jesus. And it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You bet.
Councilors, thank you. Before I move on to the consent agenda, I do want to allow Council Chair Kiley an opportunity to just engage the city.
Thank you for that point of personal privilege, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to wish our Assistant City Clerk, Denise, a happy birthday tomorrow. And I wanted to do it at this point in time because it's not often that she has that ability to be recognized on her birthday, or at least the night before her birthday. But thank you for your service to the City Council. It's greatly appreciated, and happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you, Council Chair. We appreciate it. And Denise, thank you so much for your service. We'll now move to our consent agenda. Council, any items you want to discuss tonight?
Move to approve.
Second, Erickson.
Council Chair Kiley's made a motion to approve our consent agenda, seconded by Council Vice Chair Erickson. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Neitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Erickson, yes.
That has passed 8-0. Our regular agenda tonight, any changes to that, Council?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Salberg.
Council Vice Chair Kiley, Erickson has made a motion to approve our regular agenda, seconded by Councilor Selberg. If there's no discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Neitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Erickson, yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you. Folks, welcome. This is the public input portion of our meeting. It gives the citizens an opportunity to engage the council really on any topic that is of interest to them. Just come forward, state your name, please. If you could keep your comments to 5 minutes or less, the council would appreciate that. Also, if you could address the council as a whole versus individual personalities, we'd also appreciate that. And then one last thing, if you could be as professional as possible and respectful, we would also appreciate that. Welcome.
Yes, Mayor Huther, council members. We are Bob and Marge Good, and we want to tell you about something that had happened that was very avoidable. We're here to bring up the fact that I got T-boned in a car accident on 69th and Cliff Avenue intersection on June 28th at 7:38, which was kind of rush hour, due to a traffic maintenance employee adjusting the lights from a blinking at that intersection live during rush hour. I'm here to tell you that this accident didn't have to happen. Right after the traffic maintenance employee switched a switch, the crash happened, is what the traffic maintenance employee told the police officer who told me. The police officer who responded to this accident didn't cite either the lady that T-boned me or me, as he said, we did all the right things. Both vehicles had to be towed. Our vehicle, less than a year old, has $7,400 damage, and the other vehicle was totaled. The body shop, where we requested our vehicle to be hauled to, mentioned that the same kind of accident happened just 2 weeks earlier at a different intersection. And Bob's going to kind of summarize this.
Okay. I don't want to take much of your time, but we thought it was worth your hearing it directly because this was a situation where this incident occurred during about 20 minutes to 8 or something Wednesday morning, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And the maintenance person was fiddling, manipulating the lights during this time, basically live action when there's live traffic going on. Marge had what appeared to be a red light as she was approaching the intersection, slowing down for that, and it turned green. So as you normally would proceed through that. And the lady, as I understand it, talking with a lady later who was going south on Cliff Avenue. Marge was going east on 69th. And the other lady was going south on Cliff Avenue. She had been stopped for a red light. She got apparently a change in signal and moved forward at that time too. So the manipulation of the light, I guess, is what caused this thing. And I guess we're here to say that if there is a procedure in place, you know, a fail-safe kind of a situation, that those, it must not have been adhered to at that time, or there was a serious mistake made at any rate. And if there isn't a policy in place, somebody should make sure that that is, and that it's followed up so that, you know, there should at least be police guidance through an intersection if there's something going on with lights, or do it during the night or do it sometime when there's not much traffic. So, okay, so obviously there's the issues that occur as a result of an accident like this, insurance issues and everything else that come to bear. But this could have been very serious. You look at the picture, fortunately the impact was right at the wheel. And if this had been back a foot and a half further in Marge's door, she may not have been standing here tonight. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Very good, Marge and Bob. Thank you. It's first I've heard of it, and I can guarantee you I will follow up on this. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council on any topic of interest to them? Welcome.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. First, I want to say I was watching the informational, and I've been very, very impressed with the performance of Elizabeth Whaley and what she's done with the zoo. She's really turned that place around. I was able to meet her a couple of years ago at some other event, and she just filled my ear with all the wonderful things that they're doing out there and saving all these endangered species and stuff. And, I told someone the other day I wish she'd run for mayor. Anyway, I was looking at some numbers today. We're talking about a rate increase for the ambulance service, and I'm a big proponent of having a public ambulance service. Many big communities across the country have them. They operate very well. And one of the main reasons is if you look at the numbers. Now, the 2017 proposed budget, I was looking over the fire department stuff. The fire department shows up on scene in about 5 minutes, 12 seconds, 90% of the time. Okay, so most of the time, the fire department is the first one there. Their operating budget is $26.2 million. They spend $23 million of that on personnel. $2.3 million is capital. They have a total budget of $28.5 million. I'm not counting the Sioux Falls Police Department numbers in these numbers, by the way. This is just fire department. The total number of calls the Sioux Falls Fire Department went on in 2016, because these are the number we have for a full year, was 12,932. Actual fires, this is really good, the fire department, actual fires they responded to were 282. Well, that's not their fault. That was all the fires there was. Of the 12,932 calls that they responded to, 6,821 of them were, guess what? Emergency medical and rescue. Now, we're saying that we're not subsidizing the ambulance service. Well, we are. At a tune of probably over $12 million a year, not including the Sioux Falls Police Department. It seems bizarre and just doesn't seem economically right that we would hire a for-profit ambulance service when our fire department is showing up 5 minutes to each emergency call. We're spending $12 million a year for them to be there. And we would turn around and hire a for-profit ambulance service when we could probably do an initial investment of about $30 million, equip every fire department with an ambulance. They'd be there, they'd transport, could hire a private company to do all the billing and collections, and we'd actually get some money back. When we spend this $12 million, besides public safety, and I understand there's a cost there, we aren't getting any reimbursement. But a for-profit ambulance company is. And it would be more transparent because it'd be public. I think it's time we explored this. We looked into the cost of what it would cost to equip each ambulance or each fire department with an ambulance, and maybe an extra, you probably have to have an extra 1 or 2 people at each place, and really give a true service to the public. We're already spending the money. We might as well get some reimbursement out of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Folks, anybody else? Welcome.
Greetings. Oh, hey, my name is David Zokaitis. You can read it up there. In honor of the tropical weather, I wore a tropical shirt because it's hot out there. Getting the groove a little bit. Something that I've been really interested in for a long time is just who is in control. So that's what we get to talk about tonight, the flow of power. Who's got control? How did we get it? And maybe what do we need to do differently? Oops. There we go. Now, just so everybody knows, I'm trying to talk about the system and not individuals. Because I don't like what we're going to say, so it's, it's about the system. And the system's got problems. Well, that's not necessarily due to the people involved. It's just the system needs some work. Cars need tune-ups. Systems need work. Now, when I've looked around at government in action, I've seen some things that don't seem to matter very much. Oh, like I've reported on unconstitutional laws, and they stay there, like as if they don't matter very much. And I've reported on wayward police, and nobody seems to mind that either. And if you look at the FCC, we're about to lose internet neutrality, and that will allow internet service providers to censor articles along the way. How could we possibly give up the cherished freedom of press? It makes no sense to me. At least it didn't used to, but it's starting to make a little more sense. Now, I have seen things that seem to be very important. Oh, sorry, wrong slide. Oh, wrong direction. Okay, I have seen things in government that do seem to be more important. Maintaining the status quo, for example, seems to be a big deal. Lowering taxes year by year on the rich seems to be an important consideration. Regressive taxation policies that shift the tax burden onto the poor, these seem to be important. And we're also in an era where government power is extended bit by bit, year by year. All right, so this all looks a little suspicious, or maybe what's going on? And then I look at meetings where people try to talk about things, but it appears as though the decisions were made beforehand because, there's this big mass of people that says this and the government does that instead, and there's such this huge disparity, so, like, what's going on? Apparently the decisions are not made where we think they are. And then I see a situation where, the young guys, they come out and they're rebels for a little while, and then they get kind of worn out and fighting this uphill battle forever. And then somehow dogma seems to trickle down because you've got these important considerations from the status quo and get all this malarkey for fighting them all the time. So you get worn out, and senior officials tend to promote the status quo just due to this mechanism, regardless of how good they are. Now, if we look at what's going on in government in general, behind the full legislature, there seems to be little cliques here and there. Well, and if you have a vocal minority, then oftentimes you can be in control of the large organization. And you've got, maybe a mayor or a governor or a president setting policy, and these might be given to a leadership committee. Now here's the important part. Elections in this country tend to be very expensive. So we have to get donations from people who have got more money than we might like, and then all of a sudden you're serving your important campaign donors instead of perhaps who you might want to be serving. Bad system, bad policies. We need to change this. Okay. So here's kind of the summary of all these different points along the way. Power seems to start with campaign donors, and from there, there's mayors, governors, presidents, important senior committee members, and then you've got a steering committee perhaps, and you've got the full legislature. And that seems to be the way power really goes. And too many campaign donors are into money and not interested enough in the common good. I found a beautiful journal article that says we've got an oligarchy, not a democracy. You can read the third paragraph, but I'm running low on time. And here's a bunch of things that we can do to reclaim our government. And of course, we got to enjoy life and try to change the world. I hope you recognize this picture. And with that, good evening, everybody.
Thank you, David. Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Welcome.
I got to bring this down to my level after he had it. I'm Stephen Ciano, as you well know, and I recently sent you a letter complaining about my last presentation here being misrepresented, so I hope that's going to be fixed. And then I just came over from the library where I sent you all another email. It's entitled, My Perception of the Nature of the Attack and Its Continuation Unless You Act Positively. For having different beliefs upon entering the USN in '76, I was labeled homosexual and attacked for over a year until I suffered disability with PTSD marked by panic-induced catatonia. I was then discharged early with a misrepresentation of the situation which denied my primary disability of PTSD. VA, SSA, and others in public and private positions in multiple states have since refused and suppressed evidence of this disability. Having suffered much, upon becoming secondarily physically disabled, I renewed my effort to have my disabilities acknowledged and accommodated, but was met with hostility for reasons involving the nature of this primary disability and its causation requiring report of malfeasance, which is against culturally accepted norms about complaining. Central to this discriminatory response has been further misrepresentations and theft and deprivation of my needs by fraud, which was expected to harm and kill me. I've repeatedly sought assistance from Falls Community Health with this and having my medical and related needs met. Certainly, having a safe and secure, somewhat permanent place to live has not been possible, hence my report of being technically homeless. A perceived first step was to obtain records to be used to verify and then arrange for my needs to be met as is appropriate. I've argued that obviously my medical care requires their knowledge of the facts of my situation, including that this dynamic and attacks is not a delusion on my part, but that I have been factual in my reports of my confirmed diagnoses and situation of deprivation arranged as part of the associated life-threatening assault on me. This assault continues and likely will until someone identifies the problem and corrects adequately. I have learned that as a blacklisted veteran, I have cause to fear the VA hospital. Therefore, it appears to be a medical necessity that VA payment for all my medical care be arranged. I see past and continued failure to provide for my medical and other needs and concealing the facts as discrimination. A USN begun VA-led life-threatening assault on me is expected to continue until police or someone else acts as is appropriate. My complete medical needs will likely continue to not be met as much as beyond the purview of FCH. I have explained that I perceive misrepresentation of and failure to compel city entities involved or take other appropriate measure in response to my reports to the Sioux Falls City Council as suggesting complicity with crimes alleged by me, with the understanding that I can be prosecuted for fraud or perjury if I misrepresent the situation. My life has been threatened. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Stephen, thank you, and thank you for your service. Folks, did anybody else want to engage the council? Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Item 6, please.
Second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations for affordable housing projects, $2,315,650.
Did anybody want to speak to this with community development?
I'm Les Kinstead. I'm the affordable housing manager for the city. I guess if any of you have any questions, I think the material and the discussion we had last time covered the topic, but I'm certainly willing to answer any kind of questions that any of you may have. So.
Les, thank you. Before I go to the council, is there anybody in the audience who wanted to address the council on this topic? Welcome.
Yeah, I guess maybe I have some questions.
And Scott, would you just reintroduce?
Yeah, Scott.
Thank you.
Scott Ayers from Sioux Falls.
Thanks, Scott.
As I understand it, and like I said, I have some questions, so please correct me if I'm wrong. What we're doing is we're spending a very large chunk of this money to tear down a house, build a new house, and sell it at a loss. And I think, what did we build? 12 houses, or 12 or 14? 10 under construction for this year. Wouldn't it make more sense to try to fix up these houses, or try to do a change affordable housing into more of a refurbishing department, where we're taking houses that we can go in and fix them up for $30,000, $40,000 and resell them and actually get our money back, or at least break even, instead of tearing houses down, rebuilding houses and losing money on reselling them, and then only 10 houses when we could probably fix 50 houses? I mean, is that something that you guys have considered with what you're doing, or is that just out of do the federal funds prevent you from doing something like that?
Scott,
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
just address the council, and then when you're done, then I'll certainly go to Les.
That's my question.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else who wanted to address the council on this topic? Very good. Les, would you mind coming forward, please? And Mr. Hirschman was wondering if there was a better way to invest these funds, such as rehabbing older homes and using the money in that capacity.
Typically, the homes that we will demolish are homes that are well beyond their useful life. They've been deteriorated to the point where they really, rehabbing them is not something that's a potential. I would draw the attention, at least a couple of you I know, Councilor Erickson and Councilor Kiley, we showed them one of the properties that we had. You literally had people camping out in the house. You had holes in the floor, and holes can be fixed, but this was well beyond its useful lifespan, foundation starting to go. So that's typically the houses that we'll tear down. We do typically have a program, however, that does provide for rehab and repair of facilities. It's called the Single Family Rehab Program. We do in excess of 50 houses a year where low and moderate income people can receive funds, loan money in order to fix up their homes. So to that extent, we try to address it through that means.
Les, to Scott's question, could any of this money be utilized for the purpose of rehab as was maybe recommended by Scott?
Yeah, the money can be used for that purpose, and in fact, we use both the two main sources of federal money that we have. We use a considerable amount, around $500,000 a year, that we use in that single-family rehab program. So we're addressing it with the federal dollars and the rehab program that we have.
Okay, thank you, Les.
Thank you.
Council, I'm now going to turn it over to you, Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Kinstead, would you remind us, how does the city end up with these houses that they're in a horrible condition from the stories you're telling, and I have seen some of them on prior occasions. You talk to us, remind us how we get those houses.
Typically, and I have one of my staff members here, Brent Tucker, back behind me here, who works closely, and a lot of the properties that we have are ones that are dilapidated, rundown, code compliance problems, issues like that. We're just in the process of buying one now that doesn't happen to have a house on it, but there's been nothing but code complaints. Earlier this afternoon, Brent looked at one that was referred from the health department from Luann Ford, where things are in really bad shape. It's been abandoned for all practical purposes. The father died. Children are figuring out whether to walk away from it or whether they want to try to get any dollars out of it. There may be a potential for us doing that. I don't know, Brent, if you would have anything. May I have Brent address the issue of those houses?
Brent, any comments, please?
Good evening, Brent Tucker. A lot of the properties that we do get are either brought to us by homeowners, property owners, next of kin, for people that have passed on, and all of the homes that we acquire and tear down are unfit for rehab. We do not purchase homes that can be fixed by the private industry. So those are the things that we get involved with. We typically work on homes that have been in fires. They do need to come down. They're unsafe for anybody to live in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councilor Staley?
How, well, let's go back to the house last that you said you took Counselor Erickson and Kylie to. How much did you pay for that house? How much did we pay? The owner?
You know, I can't recall. That's been about right when you folks first started your term, probably 2-3 years ago. I would say that typically most of the houses that we purchased, Councilor Staley, are in the neighborhood of anywhere from $12,000, $15,000 at the low end to as much as 20 to 25 on the upper end. Typically 20 or less. I think that's a fair statement.
So what kind of a venue do you use to work out that transaction? Are we going through real estate agents, or do you do?
Typically, we'll have Brent work with the owners and try to determine whether or not we can come to terms with a price that both parties can agree to.
We work with Affordable Housing Solutions.
Brent, if you wouldn't mind just talking to the mic, thank you.
We work through or with Affordable Housing Solutions, which is formerly known as Sioux Falls Housing. We work on them. We negotiate with the property owners a price that's fair to everyone involved. Affordable Housing Solutions then submits a purchase offer for those properties, and they acquire them and own them.
Okay. And then the property owner would take care of the property taxes then, or are some of these in arrears?
When Affordable Housing Solutions does take them over, they pay for all the property taxes, they pay for the upkeep, they pay for insurance on that until the home is completed and sold, and then the new owner takes those.
And then another question, Les, you mentioned that some of this money is used for rehabbing single-family homes. Now, how does that compare to the community development program where you can fix up wiring or bathrooms? Is that the same thing, or is this something different?
That's the same program. Yeah, we have individual owners of property that need wiring done or whatever. We have, and the rehab that's done within those houses. We've had situations where leaking roofs have caused plaster ceilings to fall. Just a wide variety of things that we do in the single-family rehab program.
And you said you can only do 50 of those? I mean, is that? Did I hear you right, that you can do up to 50? 50? 50?
Yeah, we do
50.
Between 50 and 60 of those houses per year.
And so that even if, let's say someone just wanted to replace a small thing in a home, that still counts as one of the 50?
Yes, it does.
Or
yeah.
It's not just an amount.
That would count as one of the 50. Depends upon the magnitude of what they do. But yeah, if someone had a $5,000 project, we would count it.
And is that part of that furnace program that you sometimes have?
They're associated programs. They both address the same kind of thing, the same kind of issues.
How many people get the furnace option?
Last year, I think, go ahead, what were you saying? I think last year we were in the neighborhood between 30 and 40 furnaces that we replaced with high-efficiency furnaces.
Okay. And I'm really behind those programs. I think that's really
it's proven real
fabulous
positive.
for our people, yes.
Yeah, it's proven real positive. I always tell the story about the reduced energy costs on the lady with, I think, $380 in Social Security income. So it's very helpful.
I'd like to answer the one question that you had about the price of those two homes that
Brent, I got to get you up at that microphone, buddy.
The two homes that Councilors Kylie and Erickson had been to, we purchased two homes for approximately $19,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other additional questions?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Starr.
Fine, thank
Go
you,
right ahead, sir.
Thank you. I guess to piggyback a little bit about what Councilor Staley was asking about, why don't we ask for abatements? We're taking for the back taxes. It seems like we're paying one government entity with another government entity's money through and it'd be a place where it possibly could make the property less expensive.
As Brent mentioned, we typically, when the deal is cut, we don't pay for taxes, or Affordable Housing Solutions doesn't pay for taxes from before the time that the property is acquired. The only time that comes in as a carrying cost is from the time the property is built until it's converted to a single-family home, which typically is minimum 6 to 9 months, maximum probably a year and a half, 2 years.
That makes sense. I misunderstood what you were...
No, I hope that clarifies it for you.
Councilor Neitzer, sir.
So if properties are in this situation, I would assume many times property taxes are in arrears. So is that just deducted from the purchase price, or is it wiped away, or how does that work?
The price is negotiated, and we buy a property, and the property taxes are up to the person to satisfy. In order to transfer title, you have to have a clear title. You can't have a tax lien against it. So the person who gets the money for the property is going to be satisfying that lien, or the property won't sell.
Seller has to do before you close.
Yes, that's right. Clear title. Yep.
All right. And I will move approval, Nitzert.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Nitzer's made a motion to approve this item. It was seconded by Councilor Vice Chair Erickson. A very good discussion. And Brent, thank you. And Les, thanks for knowing your stuff. You were both chomping at the bit to answer.
Yeah, we were.
You're kind of fighting over it. I love it. Council, with that in mind, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Council, thank you. That is passed 8-0. Item 7, please.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 32, Audit Committee.
Mr. Mayor.
Council Vice Chair Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This
You're
is
welcome.
an ordinance that myself and Councilor Kiley had brought forth. Just as we moved through the appointment process, we wanted to make sure we had a consistent appointment process with how the other boards do it as well. And so there is one board in which the council does have appointed outside members, and that is the Audit Committee. And so what this ordinance does is it just puts a basic procedure in that's much like the one that you follow. It posts the audit position, requires the Audit Committee to have notification 72 hours before consideration, and then it comes to the council for full advise and consent. Much of this is we already do. It's just a matter of having that policy in place. As council changes over the years, we know what the expectations are, and we're just being consistent as we move through. Again, this happens very, very rarely because we just have the one committee that does have the appointment for outside citizens, and that's the Audit Committee. So it asks for your approval. It's pretty straightforward. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilor, would you mind making a motion?
Sure, I'll move to approve for Tuesday, July 18th.
Second.
There's been a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for this item for July 18th. It has been seconded. Councilor Rolfing.
Yes, I want to thank you two, and I know I worked with you in putting this together as Audit Committee Chair. I think it's a good policy, good procedure. We've never had anything in writing, and you're right, we should. And so this is good.
Very good, team. A roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, Councilor Staley, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a question about the notification. We're talking about 72 hours, 21 days. How, and I don't know if we can discuss this now, but when a vacancy is open for something like this, how are we going to notify people about it?
It's going to be posted. It will be posted, a media release just as such like the mayor does when he has openings on the citizen boards. There's a media release that goes out saying, hey, there's an opening on the fill in the blank.
So are we, that didn't happen on this last time around? It wasn't posted?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
So for the last vacancy, we didn't post it, or
no, we did post it.
Yeah, we did.
It was posted.
Okay.
Yeah, the last time it was posted as well, and so this just really solidifies the process in which we followed to have it in here. There was input. I know this was sent out to all the council for their input. I didn't hear back from anyone except for Rex saying, hey, it looks good, and it was also addressed with the internal auditor, Kim, to make sure that she had her buy-in as well, since this does impact her independent department. It's not a city council department. It's not an administration department. It's independent of us all, and so we wanted to make sure that we weren't having any unintended consequences from putting something like this forward. Not that there would be. So this just really does a media release. Or however we want to post it, it can be posted. Has to go. The audit members have to be notified, as well as it then coming to the council. And so I know we kind of had conversations about the last appointment, and so we just want to make sure that we've got a policy in place, and so that it's consistent as we move forward through the years to making sure that this is the expectation that we have.
Councilor Nitzert.
purely for clarification, if there were multiple applicants for this position, who makes the decision of who to bring forward to the city council for adoption?
It is appointed by the audit chair. I believe it says the audit committee chair pursuant to section 32-32.018 would be the person doing the appointing. And so the audit person and the audit committee is appointed by the council chair at that time.
Okay. And the 72 hours notice, that would be purely simply, it could be as simple as an email,
Sure.
not necessarily a scheduled meeting that we hear it at the audit committee?
Yes, we wanted to have some flexibility with that in case there wasn't a meeting and there were candidates ready to be brought forward. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Before I go back to Councilor Staley, did any of the other councilors have a comment on this one? Councilor Staley?
So just for future reference, since we're talking about this, if someone was going to try to have some legislation to change that so the audit chair wasn't the final determinant on this and that it would be like a council, I mean, how would that look if we were going to have the council decide upon that? Would that be a charter amendment?
It is advise and consent of the council. So we do vote on it, just like we did vote last time.
No, I'm saying where we would have more input, like we did on the redistricting commission. We got to look at the applicants. We got to have some input into that from the ground level up. If we ever wanted to have some kind of a change so we'd have more input at the beginning, is that a charter revision? Or
I
is that
would
an
defer
ordinance?
to the city attorney, but I'd also say that at any time you can reach out to any other counselor and lobby if you have a citizen that wants to be on a board and say,
Right, but I
hey,
know
this is
in the
important.
past we had a situation where we weren't allowed to see the applicants, and so that was something I guess personally I'd like to have a little more flexibility in that.
My understanding, there weren't any other applicants, that we had one applicant.
No,
last
I'm
time,
talking
and
about in
that's
a
it.
different instance we were filling a different position.
This is the only board that we appoint that is not a mayor's appointment. This is the only board that we appoint.
No, I'm taking this, well, okay, we're probably going in I'm talking about employees when we're looking at.
This is completely different
All right,
conversation that I'd
okay.
be happy to have offline, or maybe the city attorney
Okay.
could
All right.
address it too, because this has nothing to do with the hiring of city employees. This is simply a citizen volunteer board.
Thank you.
A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzert?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Council, item number 8, please.
First reading an ordinance approving the annual rate increase pursuant to the franchise agreement for ground ambulance service for the City of Sioux Falls with Paramedics Plus LLC.
Jill?
Good evening. Jill Franken, Public Health Director with the City of Sioux Falls. The agreement between City of Sioux Falls and Paramedics Plus stipulates ambulance services will be provided without subsidy and that the primary means of compensation will be through fee-for-service reimbursement of patient charges. So what that means is just like in a clinic or in a hospital, Paramedics Plus is able to, through these set rates, be able to charge for their services, and then through third-party payers or through the patient pay, they are able to get reimbursement for their services, and that's how they generate their revenue. So in turn, annual rate increases will be the greater of 3% or the increase of the CPI for any given year, the Consumer Price Index. All rates and charges for services shall be approved by REMSA, which they have, and the City Council before you. The CPIU, or urban, for the year ending May 2017 was 1.9%. Therefore, the Paramedics Plus rate increase for your consideration for approval is 3%. Just to give you a little prior history, prior to Paramedics Plus coming on board, and this existing contract, for the last 5 years prior, the rate increase was an average of 3.4%, just to help you out with that. So contract compliance and quality assurance validates that Paramedics Plus has met all their contract compliance requirements. They request the 3% rate increase as stipulated in the contract between Paramedics Plus and the City of Sioux Falls. Just to let you know, too, both Mike Bureau, CO for Paramedics Plus, and Mark Postma, Vice President for Paramedics Plus, are here as well.
Jill, Mike, Mark, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Folks, this is a second reading, or first reading, so you don't have the opportunity to engage the council on this. I'm going to go directly to the council. Councilors, questions. Councilor Neisert.
It seems to me from memory in the contract that there's an assumption about, I think, the payer mix, you know, how much would be Medicare patients and how much would be private payer. And then I think if it deviated so many percent in reality from that we could adjust rates. Am I?
Without having the contract in my hand, there are certain conditions where if there's a dramatic change and fluctuation in the demographics of our community, which have a impact on their revenues through these fees, which are generated, or the reimbursements that's generated through these fees or these rates, that those could be special considerations, if that's what you're referring to, where they could come and ask for some consideration in changing those 3% or the CPI rates.
Yes, if the payer mix is I don't know how to say it, but not the way that they would like, and they could ask us to increase their rates to make up for that. Do you get a yearly report, or is that something that they would just have to come to you and show you?
They would have to come and show us, but we do look, you know, obviously that's where this medical CPI helps guide us as well, and then the rate of 3% if the medical CPI is less than that would come into play.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Director Franken, one of the things we talked about this afternoon was, you know, fixed costs and what it costs to run, and Mr. Bureau spent some time talking about, pointed out a medication that had severely gone up in price and being able to do that. When I'm looking at the ordinance tonight, we don't regulate the price of drugs that are administered as part of the contract, do we? So they would just be able to adjust their pricing for rate increases like that? The basic things that are listed in the ordinance, whether it's the base rates, but it doesn't include medications or that we regulate as part of the contract, do we?
No, we don't, but they are, I mean, like any health entity, they have supplies, they have equipment, things of that nature that they purchase. And so I think what they were referring to this afternoon were equipment or supplies such as medications, and giving an example of a dramatic increase. And so that goes to their expenses. And that's where
able to pass those increases along, as much as insurance, private, you know, a majority of ambulance services private pay, because most plans are really difficult to pay for ambulance services in those cases as well. So it probably wasn't as good of an example of pointing out where their costs have gone on, that they're not able to pass some of those costs along. At least from a city point of view, we're not regulating passing those costs on.
Jill, I think the question, that there is a question there, and I think Councilor Starr articulated it well. The question is, if there is a medication or a drug and that price fluctuates, generally it goes up, is Paramedics Plus allowed to charge more or to cover that cost, or can they charge whatever they want?
Well, actually, that's those types of expenses are built within. There's only so many things they can charge for when they're charging the patient, which are those rates. And so any costs that they incur in providing that care, which then are those rates that they charge, that's part of that charge. So that basic rate includes things like medications and things of that nature. There's a mileage rate that they are able to charge, and then there's also oxygen that they're able to charge. But otherwise, they don't have a line item like you might see in the hospital where you get paid for every Tylenol or every medication. That's not how they bill. Thank you.
Very
and
good.
So that's, if that helps to explain that.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Very good. Good question and good answer. Council Chair Kiley.
Thank you. Earlier this afternoon, I had pointed out that their growth of calls for service has increased nearly 20% in just over a year and a half, and yet their response time compliance has continued to be well above the 90% threshold that they're required to meet in their contract. In fact, the median for priority 1s, 2, and 3 is in the vicinity of 98%. Several times for priority 1, they've actually hit the 100%. So there is definitely a need to have an increase built into this because we expect them to continue to meet the needs of the citizens. And I mean the 3% increase is in the contract for that reason, because they have to be able to continue to meet the needs and grow their service accordingly. And to address a little bit again what Councilor Starr was addressing, that and I had pointed out earlier that medical costs continue to escalate as well too, but what's not necessarily escalating are the reimbursements that they receive for this. So and then there's probably a number of individuals that are unable to pay entirely. So this, which is somewhat problematic. And I'd like to have Mike Bureau come up and address just the aspect of the 3%. It's not necessarily 3% on your overall contract. Could you address that and explain that? Because I'm sure you can do it better than I can.
Certainly, Mike Bureau, Chief Operating Officer for Paramedics Plus. So in terms of a 3%, as Jill said, this is merely a 3% rate increase. So it's not the same as passing a 3% increase to a city budget. It's just an individual 3% rate increase that goes directly to that bill. And to go back to, as Jill was saying just a moment ago, there are certain categories that we're able to bill. So ALS, ALS2, BLS. We're allowed to charge for mileage. We're allowed to charge for oxygen, but all those fall within that 3% increase and are verified when I present that forward to Director Franken in order to move forward with this rate increase.
Council Chair?
That's fine. Thank
very
you
good.
very
Thank
much.
you. No, you're welcome. Councilor Staley?
And just maybe our attorney, David Fifley, can fill in on this, but just for people to know, when we talk about what our abilities are to have any changes to the contract, there's nothing we can change. It's a straight up or down vote. And my understanding is if someone would vote no on the contract, we could face some legal problems. Is that correct?
That's a good summary, Councilor, yes.
Councilor Buck?
If I can just remind the council then that it was the council that agreed to this contract originally. It does go for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, we get to look at it again and make those changes to it. Yes, we have the option to extend it for a period of time if we want, but we also as a council have the option to say, no, we're not going to extend it. We're going to renegotiate it. Right now, we're living under this contract because it was agreed to by the city council. And the fact is saying again and again that we can't do something about it is misleading. We can. We are the body that controls this contract, and we are just living by the contract that we set.
Before I go back to Councilor Staley again, is there anybody else on the council who has an opportunity to speak who would like to? Councilor Staley?
Well, and just to say, I wasn't on the council when we approved this contract. So for 5 years, I understand what Councilor Erpenbach is saying. In 5 years, we can look at this, but right now, there's no wiggle room for us at this point. So I understand the previous council did this, but we really have to just vote yes on this, just so the public understands how this is, why we're voting yes.
Councilor Staley, repeated it, and I think David confirmed it, and now you repeated it again.
Right, I did.
So,
thank you.
Yes, that's the third time of repeating it. Did anybody else want to engage? Well, yes, Councilor Selberg.
So the way I understand it is we've had an agreement. There were standards that were supposed to be made. They've been made, so now they'll get paid as they were supposed to.
Councilor Selberg? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anybody want to make a motion on this particular item?
So moved, Rolfing.
Second.
Councilor Rolfing's made that, and Councilor Bach rushed in to make the second. Appreciate it. If there's no further discussion, and what we're doing, folks, is we're setting a date of hearing and second reading for July 18th. So you'll still have another opportunity to repeat some of these same comments if you want. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Thank you, Council. Item 10.
Item number 9, sir.
Oh, word. I'm in a hurry. Item number 9.
First reading an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 150, Building by adopting the 2017 National Electrical Code and amendments thereto.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm Butch Warrington, Chief Building Services Official for the City of Sioux Falls. With me tonight, I have Larry Kippis, who is also the Chief Electrical Inspector for the City of Sioux Falls. What we're going to do here is we're going to adopt the 2017 National Electrical Code. Every 3 years, they come out with a new code. The state of South Dakota has already adopted this, and the code has been approved by the Electrical Board of Appeals also and recommended its passage. A couple of the high points that are changes this time, they expanded the definition of a kitchen. And what that is if you put a microwave in the basement on a counter, that's not a kitchen. So therefore, you don't have to put in some extra electrical outlets, that type of thing. The other thing is gas ranges are now going to have a dedicated circuit. And gas ranges probably only make up 2 to 5% of the ranges in the City of Sioux Falls. However, they are now coming out with convection ovens in them, which require their own circuit. And if we don't put it in when the house is being built, it makes it very difficult and very expensive in order to put it in. The next one is wet location requirements. And what this is, gives the amendment that we can start doing residential wiring, not only residential but commercial wiring, where once we get a roof on, get some of the holes plugged up. Otherwise, what the national code would say is you have to have all windows in, siding has to be on, the roof has to be on, and that slows down construction. The last one is we clarified that in order to get a City of Sioux Falls electrical license, you have to have the same license with the state of South Dakota before you can test.
Well, Butch, thank you. You did a good job. And Larry, thanks for being here tonight. Councilors, any discussion on this particular? Yes, Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Is there anything that we're doing different that we're requiring in the city versus what the state and the national requirements were placed, other than that licensing that you were just talking about?
Well, the other 3 are local amendments that the state doesn't, and we're just clarifying them a little bit more, so we have specifics in there. That's the biggest thing we do, and there's a lot of amendments that you'll see that we're just carrying over from previous codes that we clarified in earlier times.
Councilor Starr, did that answer it the way you wanted?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Rolfing.
Just real quick, did you run this by the home builders and those associations that would be directly affected?
I did not run it by the home builders. I do have a meeting with them next Monday, and it will be brought up. They do have a copy of everything, but I did not go because this is more with the electrical, and we went with the electrical board.
Okay, were they
Yes, they were approved with it, yes.
Super, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Neisert, sir?
Did I see that sumps would require a dedicated circuit?
Yes, some pumps will require a dedicated circuit, and that is something that is carried over from previous codes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, have we had that in effect already?
Yes, that's true.
Where are arc faults or circuit interrupters, circuit breakers required in residential construction?
With that, I'm going to get my chief electrical inspector up here. He can explain that a lot better than I can.
That's expanded over the years, maybe. So.
Larry, good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. And glad you're asking the questions because I'd rather hear them now. We did one thing, but we did take this to electrical contractors in January and February, and we covered roughly 280 people. So, but to answer your question on the arc faults, there was no expansion this year as far as residential. There was this expansion into hotels and motels. Previously it was in dormitories, but no expansion this year. And where they are required is what's normally your living areas your kitchen, your living rooms, your bedrooms, your dining rooms. Bathrooms are still exempt. They were looking at expanding it into whole house this time, but that did not pass. So it's kitchen, basically all your living spaces, finished areas, except for bathrooms, and garages and unfinished basements are exempt from arc faults.
Yeah, I thought I remember seeing a proposal of doing the entire house. That's why I was curious if it had been changed.
It'll come eventually. The arc fault is electronic, more technical type breaker. Insurance agencies realize the benefits and are pushing it. And that's one thing, you know, we start adopting. I think you asked what the additional rules the city has. We have few, but very few, and most of them are clarifications so that we get that wiring in at the start, at the rough end, where it's most economical, not waiting until after the sheetrock's done and the house is done. And this is what happened with the gas ranges. They were having to add this, and it was a tremendous expense when you had slab-on-grade houses. And it's like Butch said, maybe 1 or 2%. And it's upper-end houses that have the gas ranges, so we got them in there to start. And electricians seem to agree that it was necessary. A lot of our rule changes because technology is mandating it, such as stoves going to convection. The only thing it used to be on a gas stove was a clock. Yeah. So it could be on with everything else. And but you know, we've got the convection ovens, we've got every imaginable toy there is, and the industry's changing to keep up with it. I think changing every 3 years is too often, but we're not keeping up with the industry, even in the 3-year change, so.
Thank you.
Very good, Larry. Thank you. Councilor Neitzer? Very good, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, Council, would anybody want to make a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, July 18th for this item?
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second.
Councilor Erpenbach has made that motion, seconded by Council Chair Kiley. Very good discussion. Thanks for making us look good, Larry. And Butch, welcome to the team. And I know Mike is sitting there grinning. He's just so proud. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Councilors, thank you. That has passed 8-0. Item number 10. And City of Sioux Falls, I'm going to recuse myself on this particular item. I'm going to now hand over the gavel to Council Chair Kiley. Council Chair?
Item 10, a resolution declaring it necessary to levy and levying a frontage assessment against the lots, tracts, and parcels of land fronting and abutting upon 21st Street from Phillips Avenue to 7th Avenue in the City of Sioux Falls for the purpose of maintaining, planting, and otherwise improving and caring for the center parkways and boulevard thereon.
Okay, welcome.
Good evening, City Council. Kelby Maris with Parks and Recreation. As Denise said, this resolution would levy the assessments of those properties abutting 21st Street from Phillips Avenue to 7th Avenue to fund the care and maintenance of the landscape median. This assessment has been in place since 1915. There are 53 property owners that are affected by this assessment, and the assessment rate has not changed since 1998. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Kelby. Before we turn it over to the council, are there any members of the public that would like to have input on this? Seeing none. Council?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Erpenbach.
Okay, that's been moved by Councilor Erickson, second by Councilor Erpenbach. Any further debate? Roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach,
Yes.
Kiley,
Yes.
Neitzer,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
The resolution is passed 8-0. Item number 11.
Item 11, a resolution approving the vacation of the public right-of-way for Granada Way beginning at Reynolds Place Road in Highland Meadows and ending at Revelio Place Road in Revelio Country Estates as shown on Exhibit A.
Welcome. Good evening, Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. The right-of-way vacation in question is near the intersection of South Cliff Avenue and 85th Street. It is actually outside of the city limits, but within the city-county joint jurisdictional area. The right-of-way was platted in 1978 and was never improved. The Lincoln County nor the city of Sioux Falls has any intention of ever improving it. Lincoln County approved the vacation in accordance with South Dakota law back in October. And South Dakota law requires the approval of this body once Lincoln County has approved it. So we are just here to essentially concur with their approval. We did send out, as a courtesy, we sent out letters to the abutting owners. We weren't required to, but as a courtesy, we did send it out for the meeting tonight. And engineering supports this vacation.
Kurt, thank you. Folks, anybody want to speak to this item in the audience? Councilors? Yeah, Councilor, I'm sorry, Council Vice Chair Kylie, or Erickson?
You're fine, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, because as you were talking, I'm asking him, don't we have to have Lincoln County vote on this too? And so you answered all my questions. And so thank you for that, and I will move to approve.
Second. Councilors, thank you both for making that motion and seconding that. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Item 12.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting the page number of the plat that reaffirmed the easement released in Resolution 44-17.
Back in May of 2017, we had a resolution 4417 for an easement release. And within that easement release, we had a plat reference page that was incorrect. So we are just here tonight to correct that reference in the resolution, and we would appreciate your support on this resolution.
Kurt, thank you. Did anybody want to speak to this item? Council?
Move to approve, Neitzer.
Second, Selberg.
Councilor Neitzer made a motion to approve this item, seconded by Councilor Selberg. Thank you both. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Kylie? Yes. Neitzer?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
That is passed 8-0. Council, thank you. It's been a long day for the City Council, and I just want to commend them for their efforts. Also, happy birthday again, Denise. Appreciate what you do. If there's no other items, would anybody want to leave this meeting tonight?
To adjourn.
Thank you, Councilor.
And a second.
And a second. And, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Sioux Falls. Make it a great, great night.